Hi, Kirk.
Hi, Jenny.
How are you? You doing well?
Hi there.
Hi. What
Early
is,
birds today, huh?
what's that?
I guess we're early birds today.
I guess so. Gosh, we're only 6 minutes early. I'm surprised there aren't more of us here.
Yeah, really.
That's okay. It gives me a chance to visit with you.
There you go. All right, sounds good. Oh, here comes Lutz.
Lutz. It's Lutz.
Lutz, I'm sorry.
No, it's quite all right. I think I called him that for the first 3 months that I knew him.
Morning, Lutz.
Morning.
Are we gonna have any baseball?
I don't know. It's getting pushed back further and further, isn't it?
Yeah.
You don't seem too desperate yet, though.
No, not yet.
No.
Hi, Debbie.
Hi, Debbie.
Hi, Lutz. Hi, Kirk.
How are you?
Good, thanks. And everyone else?
Beautiful day out. Can't
Yeah.
complain.
Yeah. So,
Morning,
Lutz, I
Donna.
just finished reading a book by Ursula Le Guin.
Uh-huh.
I forget the title now, but No Time to Spare. Anyway.
Okay.
And I thought of you because I kept coming across things to quote. So I made a note in my little phone on all sorts of different quotes from that book, thinking of you.
Great. Well, she was friends with one of my colleagues at the college, Jeanette Dube. And Jeanette had her come a couple of times to lecture down here. And she
I
was,
heard her once at RCC.
yeah. And she was interested in the fact that I use her short story, The Ones Who Walk Away from Omelas, in my ethics class.
Oh, okay.
It's the perfect example of a utilitarian system.
Yes. Well, I started reading her fantasy books, decades and decades ago, and have always enjoyed her books and thought, I haven't read this one.
Yeah,
So
great.
She is the one that she got the Edgar Award, I think. Was that The Other Side of Darkness, or what is the name of that one?
left hand of
And
darkness.
Side of Darkness.
Left
Yeah.
hand, okay. And you know who else was a very close friend of hers and a collaborator was Roger Dorban, the one who wrote, the book about the rogue,
Uh-huh.
this photographer.
Right.
Anyway, and he, her Moon Over Thurman Street, he was the photographer for that. And then they collaborated on another one about Eastern Oregon. Anyway.
Interesting. Yeah, I always ask the students if there are any hints in the title of The Ones Who Walk Away from Omelas that she is an Oregon writer. And every once in a while, one of the students will say, whoa, Omelas is Salem, Oregon backwards.
Oh. Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's good.
And you know what else?
What?
Ukiah, where Steve grew up and where I ended up going to high school, is haiku spelled backwards. So there.
Oh,
Oh.
so I'm not particularly clever in Scrabble type of puzzles where you've got a bunch of random letters and you have to try and find words from them. But I've been doing a Wordle a
Have
day
you?
lately, trying to get better at that particular job skill.
Interesting. Boy, look at everybody popping up suddenly.
Yeah, it's like magic.
It is.
The party, let the party begin.
We should have a Hollywood Squares kind of thing at the beginning, and the person who fills it in gets a prize.
Could be our fellowship event.
There you go.
Hi, Park.
How's everybody doing?
Good. You?
Good, good. Bonnie's off doing more charity work in Atlanta, so she may not make the call today.
Okay.
Picture popped up on Facebook, written by, I think it was the food bank person, with her car loaded up to go to Wolf
Yeah.
Creek with
Yeah.
clothes.
Yeah.
She did a drive a few years ago back when she had the stores, and it was collecting shoes, even worn out shoes. And we had a 2.5 car garage that was full of shoes. I mean, not just the floor was covered, like full. And they would get sent to Liberia and Ethiopia, and people would remake the shoes and use pieces from different shoes and then build a business from that. And so it is for ladies in that part of the world to build their own income stream.
What a neat
It's pretty
idea.
cool.
That's a good
It
idea.
was called Souls for Souls.
Oh,
That's great.
Green Federal had a deal where they
A shoe
had
tree.
people bring in shoes, and it filled, this huge container up to the roof in the lobby. But it was really spooky for me because I've visited death camps in Europe, and
Uh,
one of the scenes was this
Yep.
room completely filled with shoes.
Yeah.
And there's, it is really heart-wrenching.
yeah, the Holocaust Museum in DC, one of the displays there is a box car that is just full of shoes. And it's just incredibly sobering.
Yeah, along the river in Budapest, they have shoes that are like going into the water. It's people that were just getting away from what was going on. And it's very moving.
It's the power of art to
Yep.
Yeah.
draw our attention.
Our shoes do tell a story.
Yep.
We had
Well,
one
but
with
ahead.
his shoes a while ago. It was at the Siskiyou Foundation. Laurel would know more about it than I remember, but there was a bunch of shoes there representing something to do with environment and stuff.
we're going to be hearing more about shoes that fit for our program coming up in a couple minutes with Jody, but I'm going to mute everybody and start the meeting. Okay. Okay, so I'll call the meeting to order for February 24th. So welcome everyone to Rotary. And hope everyone's having a great day on this cooler morning. Let's see, pledge. Kelly Moody, please.
Okay. Would everyone please join me? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you very much. And John Schiavone, our inspiration for the day. Let's see, maybe I don't see him. I don't. Well, I'll go right into the Rotary Minute, which might be a little bit of an inspiration. And it kind of bothered me to write it this month because it's about peace and conflict resolution. And we woke up to the news this morning, about what's going on in Ukraine. And so this was, actually I wrote it before, but I knew this was, it's been brewing for the past few days. But as February ends and our Rotary starts our new monthly theme in March, we should not forget that our work for peace and conflict resolution prevention still needs to continue. There are things that each of us can personally do to promote conflict resolution by starting with ourselves. For example, we can listen with the intent to learn and understand with other people and not be judgmental. We can volunteer to help others, especially those less fortunate. Our Rotary Club gives the opportunity to make a difference with food and housing assistance. And as we post and share items on social media, we can first ask ourselves if our sharing information will promote drama or will rather help others to feel better about themselves. By saying I am sorry and truly meaning it, we can help mend friendships when we have said or done something that hurt another person, unintentionally or otherwise. Above all, making a personal commitment to promote nonviolence in our own lives, using peaceful means and not force, can bring about needed political or social change. Thank you for what you do to promote peace in our world, and always remember that peace begins with a smile. It just was, I thought it was so, as we end February, that peace is in our world. I think that kind of goes along. I'll combine that Rotary Minute with maybe a little bit of a thought of an inspiration. Visiting Rotarians and guests introduction. Jolene Lefebvre is her first posting for membership is this week. Any other guests? Looks like everybody else they kind of know there.
I don't know about Jolene. You guys better be careful.
Okay, we'll take your thoughts under advisement. All right, thanks, Jim. Let's see. And Wynn is, don't believe it's on the call today, but I did have just more numbers about the more numbers that have come about, decline in numbers on COVID. And this kind of was, I would say, leads to a kind of a discussion. Last night we had our first Rotary board meeting as a hybrid version. And so what we did is I was up at the All Care building along with Susan Fisher Mackey, and thank you for her help in setting this up. And it was successful. There's some things we can work on to make it better, but our hope is around the April 7th meeting would be our first meeting. This is, kind of contingent on all the numbers continuing to decline, but you'll be hearing more about that. But we are moving forward with that progress of have our meetings in person and do it in a healthy manner for our club, our community, and ourselves. Grants Pass City Council update. Valerie.
Yes, I'll just give you a brief update. I'm going to be positive here. First of all, we know we are moving forward on the remodel of the Welcome Center to put 3 restrooms in the back of the Welcome Center and put 2 people from the city down there. One of the people will be our economic person who's going to help encourage downtown. Anyway, so that's a good thing in the Welcome Center. And then I'm working with a destination marketing organization that we put together, which has its own board and is somewhat independent. And they're currently working, they got a grant from Travel Oregon to help find what are the features that we have in our community to build on as a destination and help us be able to go out for grants to get more outside funding to promote those. So that's kind of an exciting thing. Next week, we are talking about the technology for the upcoming water treatment plant. So we will be given information at Monday's workshop about whether we're going to do a conventional or a membrane. There's differences in cost long-term. Also, one is better for adding on capacity. So that discussion happens Monday, and then we'll continue with our urban campground discussion as well on Monday. So those are the 2 items that are on our agenda for Monday. And I just wanted to ask Janie how she's surviving the Beacon Street construction, because that has been going on up there. I'm excited for the end of it. I guess the joy has been that's the only good thing about this weather where we haven't had rain is it has allowed us to do some street work that normally would have been put off for a while. So, but I'm just hoping that Janie's surviving. So anyway, that's my update.
The answer to that is barely. It's kind of noisy, dusty, and a trick to get in and out sometimes. But I know it's going to be beautiful when you're done. And the people working on it are all really nice.
Okay, good. That's good to hear. That's important for me to hear. So good.
Okay, any questions for Valerie? Okay, doesn't look like it at this time, so thank you. By the way, speaking of the urban campground, there's a link in the newsletter to Doug's meeting and all other people that were at Bethany Presbyterian Church yesterday to kind of update that. But there's about a 1 hour YouTube link if you're looking for it. It's in the e-navigator this week. Doug, would you like to give an update on home share, please?
Yeah, thank you. So myself and Ivy are going to talk a little bit about our club's project, Home Share. And so this is something we've touched on a little bit over the last month or so, where we are going to try to be organizers and help facilitate finding homeowners who are willing to rent a room out to, it started with traveling nurses. The idea was to try to find a way to help the medical community with their shortages. And we're going to expand it into just trying to help with the housing crisis in general, people that are willing to rent a room out to somebody. It turns out at the moment, the hospital there isn't as much need for rooms for hospital staff or medical staff. So we're going to expand it to just try to do anything that somebody's willing to do. But a homeowner can be, the homeowner has the right to pick, not the right, but can pick and choose kind of whoever they want. There's sort of a dating service almost in that. And so we're going to talk to you a little bit about that. And Ivy, by all means, start to chime in here. Ivy is the area Southern Oregon representative of Home Share, which is the nonprofit that we're sort of partnering with them and another organization called Silver Nest. Silver Nest. And their Silver Nest is the website that sort of does the matching of potential homeowners and roommates. So Ivy, why don't you go ahead and chime in then?
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you so much, Doug. So like Doug mentioned, I'm the Southern Oregon area representative for Home Share Oregon. We are a nonprofit who we're working on the housing crisis that Oregon faces, but we're taking a slightly different approach. I see a few familiar faces on here, but some that I am not recognizing, so I'll give you the little spiel just to make sure everyone's on the same page. So essentially what we're doing is we're recognizing that there are a ton of amazing organizations out there who are specifically addressing Oregonians who are currently unhoused, right? Who are already on the street without shelter. And though that is noble and amazing and very needed work, it's not quite where we fit into the puzzle. Where we're trying to step in is preventing more Oregonians from reaching that point. So we're here to try to turn off the tap, so to speak. So if we start looking at spare bedrooms as underutilized housing inventory, there are about 1.5 million unused spare bedrooms in the state of Oregon. Those could be home offices, guest bedroom, whatever that looks like. If we were able to just fill 2% of those, that would mean we could house 30,000 Oregonians. Now, this is not a free process. This is also very much with the intent to help out homeowners. So these rooms would be for rent. This is a secure and a little bit more sophisticated process to match folks who want to rent out their spare bedrooms, offering things like free background checks for both parties, predetermined and kind of already constructed agreements, lease agreements, documents, that kind of thing, matching services. So it's really just trying to bring a lot more security to that old Craigslist approach. And, it might not be for everyone as far as homeowners are concerned, but something to keep in mind is that 1 in 3 Oregonians currently who are homeowners are mortgage burdened. And with our mortgage moratoriums and everything coming up, as in the next few months, as things progress, kind of coming into second wave of, I don't want to say post-COVID because we're not quite post-COVID, but things are changing. Anyway, if this does not necessarily sound like something as a homeowner that initially appeals to you, keep other homeowners that you know in mind, because there are a lot of people that this might be really, really beneficial to either generate that extra income as a homeowner or find that really affordable housing with a lot more flexibility as a renter. The idea here being that no room would ever be rented for more than $1,000 a month, right? So it's going to be less than that. But even $600, it's a lot more attainable for a lot of folks than $1,500, right? For the standard rental price of an apartment. So that's kind of our goal right now. Our primary focus, the reason that I'm boots on the ground in Southern Oregon, is we are really working towards placing our remaining fire survivors at this time. But that doesn't limit the focus by any means. We know we have a lot of folks who need housing and who also need the additional support of renting out that spare room. So that can apply to our traveling healthcare workers, though at the moment, the need is not as great as we thought it was. We do anticipate that changing just because this is a situation that's been fluctuating quite a bit. So we have made adjustments to our website to filter that out for folks who do want to place with traveling healthcare professionals or house traveling healthcare professionals. That is an option that we're kind of filtering through. But essentially, our goal right now is to spread the word and recruit homeowners. We're currently looking at about a 1-to-4, 1-to-5 ratio of homeowners versus renters. So we kind of need to up our inventory. So what our hope is that if anyone's interested, or if we're getting very excited about home sharing, we could really use some help from the community to spread the word and help recruit homeowners that might be interested in participating in home sharing.
Right. Yeah. So our job as Rotarians is to try to find homeowners who are willing to explore this. And it is, when you go out and talk to somebody or you think about it yourself, you, the homeowner, the homeowner can set the time period. If you want it to be 3 months, it's 3 months. If you want it, if you're willing to go 3 months and then we'll reevaluate, you can do 3 months and we'll reevaluate. You're willing to commit to 6 months ahead of time, you can do that. And you can always back out if there's a problem, or the person, whoever the homeowner is, can back out, say this just isn't working. I believe, Ivy, correct me on, but roommate situations are on a week by week basis, I think, if that's correct.
Generally, the lease is formed for a month, right?
Okay.
However, that being said, all of those leases and contracts, as you go through the process, you'll find they're easily customized. So you can set your boundaries for your own comfort level. If there are things that might be a deal breaker for you that wouldn't exist in a traditional lease, that's 100% appropriate to work into that. So it's really designed to be a very independent process and customizable to both parties' needs.
Yeah. And so to make it easy on that first time someone might do this, they can say, okay, I'm going to agree to 3 months. We'll reevaluate at the end of 3 months, and then we'll talk about it from there. And if there is a problem, they can say, hey, I got a problem. They can reach out to Ivy and we can help facilitate. What Rotary is doing is we're asking the whole club to go maybe find homeowners, either themselves, if they're available, or any of their friends or family, to recruit them, to pass them on to Ivy or myself. And there's also a cadre of 4 or 5 Rotarians in the club who've agreed to be sort of guides or facilitators for people through the sign-up process. It's not a very difficult sign-up process, but for maybe somebody who's 60 or 70 who's not real familiar with uploading, downloading photos and creating house rules and things like that, we have some guidance and some help for that. Because that was, when I've gone on the site a couple of times to practice, it's been, okay, you got to know how to find photos and upload them. And then the one question that sort of threw me for a loop was house rules. And I was like, I have no idea what the house rules are. I never thought about that. And so we do have some examples of that. We have a person in our club, Kelly, who has done this before in the past, roommates. And so she has some pretty good examples of house rules and some of the things she's done. So she's going to share that with all of us. So that's kind of it for the little presentation we're doing here. What I'll do is, in a P-mail in the next day or two, send out to all of you the paperwork we have that will help guide you along this. And then if you would approach people you know, or think about it yourself, about this sort of issue. And what was interesting in leading up to this whole process with Ivy is that the I don't know what the right word is, the most common connection is an older woman who lives alone in a house, who could use a little extra help around the house and could also use some extra money in that to help pay bills and whatnot. And I was never thought about it, but that makes sense when Ivy explained that that's the most common homeowner that they have and the most successful connections they have. So if you all know somebody that's in that sort of situation, that's sort of a ideal person to ask.
And that's absolutely right. Thank you so much for that, Doug. And one thing I did want to add, I do have to sneak out here in just a moment because I have a 12:30 meeting. But one thing I did want to add is some of the information that I'm going to be sending on to Doug to send out to you folks. There's going to be a link in there to a news story that was just done in the last week or two by Coin News up in the Portland area. They do this amazing interview about two of a successful home share that we've kind of matched up and got going. It's this lovely, pairing of two slightly older, maybe middle-aged, a little bit older gals up in Portland. It's a really great story, and they gave really phenomenal insight to how it works, and it's worth watching. So I'll make sure to include that so you can kind of get some firsthand knowledge from folks who have done it and been through the process and what they have to say about that.
Yep. So you'll hear more from us via email, and we hope to hear back from you.
Thank you so much, everyone. I've got to sneak away, but have a lovely rest of your day.
Thanks,
Thank
Ivy.
you, Ivy. Thank you.
Okay,
And
Steve.
thank you, Doug. You bet. Thank you, Doug. Every little bit helps when it comes to housing. Jody McDonald, you have an announcement on shoes that fit.
I do. It's kind of interesting. Here we started before the meeting talking about, all the shoes that were collected and sent overseas for entrepreneurial ventures and commerce. And then shoes as art, how it changes lives and that type of thing, with what was going on in Budapest. Well, we can change the lives of children at our Evergreen School in Cave Junction by attending with the Shoes That Fit program. To my knowledge, I will do a last calculation on Monday. I'll meet with Laurel and with Jan to see what all we have collected for donations, et cetera. But to my knowledge, we've got enough funding at this point to be able to provide 53 pair of shoes. So I'm very excited about that. We kind of had to put a deadline on the March 1st date because we have to have the funds available so I can contact Shoes That Fit, so that Shoes That Fit can then work with the school. They can get the sizings and then get the shoes shipped out so that we can try to get them there hopefully by the 1st of May so that the kids will have them available before the school year is out. So anyway, I just wanted to bring it up again. We're coming up really close. Our deadline for having the funds in is next Tuesday, which is March 1st. And so if you haven't, but are interested in donating, I'm sure that if you can't send it in and you want to get it to Steve or Laurel or myself, we can go ahead and then know that it's available to use for those funds so that I can increase my numbers with the shoes. And otherwise than that, we're coming up on it.
Okay. Thank you, Jody. Thank you for your efforts to make this help.
Yeah.
Proud of helping. You bet. And we also have the men's clothing drive. I put up a small picture in the e-navigator this week that the clothes were distributed at Wolf Creek for the men. And that was a very successful, thanks to Bonnie and to make that happen. And also the Josephine County Food Bank for their efforts, Patrice, to help the people there. You can tell a number of people have been helped out through our Rotary Club, and appreciate everyone's efforts on that. Don, do you want to do an update on the vocational service award? Because I think the deadline is today, if I'm not mistaken.
You are right, Steve. The deadline for submitting a recommendation for someone to receive the vocational service award is today. Our administration committee tomorrow will meet and determine who that individual will be or group will be. I want to thank everyone who has provided a recommendation, but until midnight tonight, you still have time to send in an application. And just to remember, this is a non-Rotarian. Think about vocational service as one of our Rotary's 5 areas of service. And this non-Rotarian would be someone who shows through his or her profession that they excel as far as being ethical, service-oriented, and community-oriented. So you still have a chance, and there's look in the navigator for the recommendation, and Tommy and Kelly and I will look over those recommendations and make a selection. And then on March the 17th, we will have our award ceremony. I think that's it.
Okay. Thank you very much. Okay. Josie, you have an announcement or a question? Your hands up. Does Does anybody else have any announcements that they would like to bring up? Discussion?
I do, Steve.
You bet.
Hi.
Kelly.
Hi, everybody. I'm organizing volunteers from our club for the annual Rogue River cleanup event that's going to be held on Saturday, May 21st. We got an email from them yesterday that says check in and check out is going to be at White Horse Park, where volunteers will pick up t-shirts and other swag, learn about trash pickup and invasive weed pulling activities, deposit trash, pick up bagged lunches. There's also been a discussion about changing the location of the checkout and check-in, but they're planning on keeping this format for simplicity's sake for 2022, and they may change it for 2023. Volunteers can choose a park and location to pick up trash between Whitehorse and Grave Creek Boat Ramp. Volunteers drive themselves to these locations and they meet back at Whitehorse before noon. Volunteers can also join Kyle Strauss of the Josephine County and Jackson County Cooperative Weed Management areas and pull invasive weeds. I know Jim likes to do that. Rather than participate in trash pickup, all volunteers will receive a bagged lunch, maybe from Cartwrights, and a raffle ticket to potentially win prizes donated by local businesses. A whiteboard with the winning numbers will be displayed at the checkout. Organizations that would like to help at checkout or check-in, meaning us, may also offer informational brochures, details on other events, swag, etc. So if anybody is interested in participating in that day, if you want to get in touch with me, I'll put my phone number and my email address in the chat. And yeah, that's it. Thanks.
Sounds great. Any other announcements from anybody? A lot going on and a lot of things to be thankful for as we do. So let's move into our weekly program. And our weekly program is actually one of our own club members. And it's Todd Moran, Captain Todd Moran. And he's going to talk about the Grants Pass Public Safety Department and what's new, what's currently happening in the community. And this really affects all of us as citizens. So thank you, Todd, for presenting our program and also for what you do.
Okay, can you guys see the screen that I shared?
Perfectly.
Okay, and you can hear me, obviously. So
yes,
good afternoon, everybody. Thanks for the opportunity to share something I know a little bit about. So I think I maybe made this a little bit too long, so I'm gonna try to get through what I can. So if there's any questions, I can answer those. And I apologize in advance to Valerie, because she's probably already seen and heard all of this. So Valerie, you can take a nap if you want to. Let's see.
Always good information. I can never get enough of you, Todd.
Well, if you haven't met my chief, his name is Warren Hensman. That's a picture of him. Warren comes to us from his first law enforcement job was in Georgia. He then relocated to Las Vegas Metro Police Department, where he was a detective there involved with the auto theft task force. From there, his wife wanted to move out towards the West Coast. So the only people hiring at the moment when they got out here was Ashland. So he got a job at Ashland, worked himself up to deputy chief, and then he came to Grants Pass Department of Public Safety back in 2019 and has been fantastic for us since he got here. So one of the things that I know he would really want me to touch on are those 6 bulleted items that you see on the slide. And those items come from the 2014 21st Century Policing Report that Barack Obama put together, where there were communities that were really suffering from issues related to police and their citizenry, the contacts that they were having and the relationships that were strained. And so he wanted something that was fast, but also thorough in addressing the areas where he thought that it could be beneficial for both sides. And so probably the most important one of those on the top is building trust and nurturing legitimacy. And if you know Warren Hensman, you probably have heard him say that a time or two. All the rest of those are also really critical, but I can't touch on each one because that'd be a presentation in and of itself. But the 21st Century Police Report is online and you can read that. So here's a quick look at your Grants Pass Police Department, and there are a lot of moving parts. And those are broken out here in basically two different areas: operations, which is what I am over, and then support, which is Captain Jim Hamilton. So from there, it kind of trickles on down to various different divisions within the department. We have 56 sworn positions. We had some positions that had to be frozen by council for some cost savings. We had 2 police officer positions, a dispatcher, and a records position that were frozen at that time. So I think it's really important just to touch a little bit on what it takes to hire a new employee at our department. So the application process is very vigorous. It takes a long time. It's about a 2 to 3 month process. So applicants apply, their application is reviewed, they take a physical fitness test. After that, if they pass it, they go to the written test. After they pass it, they go to an interview with a board. And then if they get through that, they go to a chief's interview where they talk to Chief Hensman about their, listen to the philosophies and make sure they're a good fit. And then if they get past the chief's interview, they go into a background investigation. And this is not a small thing. They go back so far, like into your school. How were you as a student in high school? And so they do a financial review. They do all kinds of criminal background stuff and contact neighbors and family members. It is thorough, just because we want to know who we're working with and who's working for you. So if they get through that background, then they go to a psychological exam. Up in Portland right now is who we use an outfit up there who puts them through a pretty thorough psychological background. If they get through that, then they go to a medical exam to make sure that they're able to do the job. And at that time, if they pass it, we offer them a job. So it is a long and drawn out process. And so once they get to that point where they accept the job, then they go to training. So if you're talking about a police officer who's hired, they go into a 18-week police officer academy. And then when they get back after successfully completing that, they're on a 4-month field training program. So where they're riding with an officer, learning everything that they do. Dispatchers are similar, records are similar, but it's abbreviated in comparison to the police officer. So as you can tell, from the time we have an application to when they are actually an asset to us for staffing, it could be over a year. And so it is incredibly difficult to get people through that when you're dealing with other things like retirements or a pandemic or FMLA. And we'll touch a little bit more on that, some of our struggles we had over the last year or so. So what do we do for you? I don't know that everybody knows this, but since about the mid-1990s, Grants Pass Police Department is the only agency in Josephine County that has 24/7 full services. So our counterparts in the county go home at certain points. They don't like for us to share what time that is because we don't want to spread that information. But same with the state police. So at 3 o'clock in the morning, Grants Pass Police are the only ones that are actually still out on patrol. The uniform patrol is your traditional, patrol officer that is out there responding to 911 calls. They're deterring, detecting, and arresting those committing criminal activities. Our school resource officers are present in our middle schools as well as our high school. And one of the things that we pioneered was the school marshal program, and that was started back in 2015 in response to the Umpqua Community College shooting. And we just kind of sat there thinking, well, how do we address this? Because the officers that were able to put an end to that violent event were there pretty fast, but there were a lot of people that still ended up getting killed and injured. And so one of the things that we came up with was the school marshal program, where we have retired police officers, most of which who we know because they were police officers here. are in plain clothes, and they're in our elementary schools, because we already have coverage at the school resource level at the high school and the middle schools. And so we wanted to show some protection at those other schools as well, in our elementary school levels. So overwhelmingly positive response from the school district. They help fund a portion of that program. So we are able to have those folks in there, and they are armed, and we just don't let anybody know when they are going to be there or what school they're going to be at. It's kind of based on the Air Marshal program, where you never know who you're sitting next to. It could be an armed officer that's there and willing to take action and report back to those officers that are responding. So super critical. And we really benefited from having him there. Our traffic team, and you can see that it's currently unstaffed. We had one officer that left the profession, and we had one officer that promoted. So currently our traffic team is unstaffed, but you may have seen them in the past. They typically ride motorcycles, or if it's too cold or miserable or way too hot, they have an unmarked traffic card that they will take out and enforce our traffic laws and try to reduce crashes. That's their main focus. Over the years, we have been able to show a correlation of more traffic stops equals less crashes. And so we want to see us get a handle on those crashes if we can. You'd be surprised, there's a lot of them in our community. So our special weapons and tactics team are traditionally known as SWAT. You've probably seen the big black trucks running around from time to time. Those folks are absolutely critical when we get an incident that kind of goes beyond the scope of a patrol response. You have officers that will go to additional training above and beyond what a normal police officer does. And they learn those tactics. They have different tools and ways to end those incidents safely for everybody. They also are dispatched at the same time with our negotiations team. So we have 4 or 5 negotiators that go out with our SWAT guys, and they are the very first line. If we can negotiate our way out of an incident, we are absolutely going to do that. It's always our goal. It's better for everybody involved. And we've had many successful negotiations that have come out of that team. So huge asset for us. Our community response team, and I'll talk a little bit more about them when I get down into I want to talk a little bit about ballot measure 110, but our community response teams are the ones that are in the parks for the majority of the time, and they respond to the calls that are most commonly involving our parks or in the downtown. So they get to know the individuals really well, and our officers have big hearts for those individuals, have got them to housing. In fact, they were instrumental. I think Doug can comment on picking people that would be a good fit for Foundry Village. So they're very in tune with not only the homeless and the unhoused, but also those folks that are suffering from addictions. Probably about 3 years ago, we hired our first crime analyst. She is actually from Peoria, Illinois. She was a crime analyst there, and she was surprised about the amount of, she thought that it would be more gun violence out here because of the, the hunting. Everybody's got a gun out here and whatnot, but she was surprised when she got here. There's not near as much as back there near Peoria, which is, borders Chicago. So no surprise there, but she has been, and you'll see some of her slides that come up here, instrumental in getting us the information that we need so we can act on certain trends, crime trends that make us more successful. So it's been great having her. So we also have parking enforcement as a new, actually I skipped cadets, but they're both actually new programs here. Cadets are really intended to be in our parks. And we kind of went through most of our cadets after we hired them. They kind of moved up into patrol positions. And then some of them actually left, but we are hiring. We just went through another hiring process to get more, but you'll see them more in the downtown. offering assistance to citizens and also kind of that extra eyes and ears in those areas to call patrol in should there be some issues that arise in the parks or in our downtown. Parking enforcement came out of a decision at the council level to not necessarily contract with a private parking enforcement, but having our own parking enforcement within the department. So we have got that position filled by a very great young man who's being trained as we speak. And you will see him in a little parking enforcement car in our downtown soon. So I think that will be great for our downtown. Evidence and property, can't really say where evidence is. Some of you may know, but it is a large warehouse and there's over 50,000 articles of evidence within this warehouse. And that is a constant from patrol, and then they have to, keep that evidence secure and safe and retain it for a certain amount of time before they can actually purge anything. So it's a daily battle for our evidence and property folks to deal with the incoming and try to get that purged as much as we can. So our rogue area drug enforcement team, commonly known as RAID, consists of members from different law enforcement agencies. We recently had kind of some hiccups with that. Oregon State Police has chose to remove their 2 detectives from the team because they're pulling that back and focusing more on marijuana. So unfortunately, that leaves only Grants Pass Police with community corrections and the district attorney's office still in that rogue area drug enforcement team. We do have some federal partners through the Drug Enforcement Administration that allow us to get those big cases and assist them with getting prosecution. And I'm going to just kind of dovetail into some ballot measure 110 here shortly, but we have 2 canines. 2 of them are apprehension dogs, or known as patrol dogs, where they go out and they find people and or evidence. They can track evidence, they can track people. And then we have 1 drug dog. And that's why I put the ballot measure 110. For those of you that don't know what ballot measure 110 is, it was a measure that was voted on back in November of 2020. And it passed, and it basically decriminalized hard drugs. So your methamphetamine, your oxycodone, heroin, methamphetamine, LSD, psilocybin mushrooms, all those ones that have previously been felonies to possess. It was kind of pushed forward by the drug policy and alliance out of, I think it was New York. And so it became effective February of 21. And so we're really just this month getting the full measure of what a year looks like for measure 110. So those are our drug overdoses that you see right now, starting back in 2018, prior to the decriminalization of the hard drugs. And so what you're looking at there is that we have had 103 overdoses this year, or 2021, sorry. 74 of those people we were able to administer what's called Narcan. And we had 6 overdose deaths. And if you look back in the years prior to that, 1, 3, 1, it was nothing like it is there. And so going forward, this is a year to date. So it's January, February 18, 19, 20, 21, and now January, February of 22. So we've already had 3 deaths this year due to overdoses, and we've administered Narcan 12 times or 19 times, and we have 12 saves. So some of those Narcan administers, so I know there's probably some people doing math here and say that doesn't add up, but some of the drugs that we have right now, specifically fentanyl, is extremely potent. And so some of these people we're hitting with Narcan 3 or 4 times before we actually get them back. And once they get back, sometimes they'll think, hey, I'm fine, you saved me, thanks. And they don't necessarily follow up with medical treatment. And what they don't understand is the Narcan wears off too. and then they could be right back into an overdose situation. Just some of the data that goes back to 18. One of the things that you might see down there at the bottom, the drug arrests and the possession of controlled substance citations. If you look back at 18, those were arrests that we were affecting, in the 800s, 700s, 500s until 2021, when those numbers basically flip-flopped. So now we're issuing citations for the possession of hard drugs. And that's why you'll see that the deaths went up 500%, 21 to 20. So we're seeing some pretty scary trends with ballot measure 110. So what are we doing about it? Well, if you don't know, so the decriminalization basically means that we can no longer arrest people for possession. We can still get them to jail on commercial drug sales, but just mere possession is a citation with $100 fine. They don't have to appear in court. If they don't pay the fine, there's really no teeth behind that. So it doesn't go to collections, or you can't suspend their license or anything like that. And then the only way they say to get out of the $100 fine is to do an assessment either over the phone or online. And I think that we have had a couple in the state that have done that. I mean, it's extremely low numbers. So more often than not, they're just being ignored. So here's how we stack up. So these are the citations issued for ballot measure 110. And so as you can see, Grants Pass Police Department has issued 231 of them. We account for 23% of the entire citations issued in the state of Oregon. So we have 56 sworn officers, and the Oregon State Police have 380, and we are right on their heels. So, and that was a conscious decision by our department, because we want to try to hold not only those people that are, in need accountable, but also it may just be what they need to get help. And if we can steer some people towards treatment, we do that. And one of the ways that we're going to start doing that, oh, you don't want to see numbers yet, is we are partnering with Options of Southern Oregon. And we're going to have an outreach advocate that rides with our community resource team, CRT. And so not only is that person going to help with connecting like the unhoused with resources, but she is also an alcohol drug counselor, and she can get those folks started down the right path to treatment and hopefully out of addiction. So we have already done the interviews with that, and we're entering a background process with that individual. So hopefully she passes, and we have her out here shortly. I think it's going to be huge. All right. So this isn't just exciting. This is just numbers. So I had to do is I had to go through this and pull out our fire department, because if you guys didn't know this, in September, we divided our police and fire services. We're no longer a Department of Public Safety. So our fire rescue department is that, and we are now a police department. So this is our old patch. It says public safety, and I'm still wearing it, but this is a proposed replacement with the city seal. So we're moving down that road. So this is just the budgets. Fire accounted for about $7 to $8 million of those budgets. And so just thought you guys would like to see it. It's definitely not inexpensive to run a police department, I can assure you. So what is it that we're doing besides patrol? So we have major crimes that take place not only in the city, but in the county. And you'll see a later slide that talks about that. Our raid narcotics team, one of the things that they do a great job at is that they're not just affecting, those folks that are using drugs here. They're affecting the people that are bringing drugs here. For about 5 years, I was honored to sit as the RAID board chair. And we refocused in 2018 our efforts from marijuana to the harder drugs. And what that meant was going after the methamphetamine and the heroin, fentanyl, those drugs that are really wreaking havoc here in Grants Pass. And so RAID has been involved in taking off the DTOs, is what's called the drug trafficking organization. So they have been all the way down into Mexico, working with federal partners and going after people that are bringing things across the border into California, up into Oregon and Washington. And they have stops all along the way, and our city was one of them. And so they are not just the small town drug force or drug task force. They have been instrumental in some really big cases. So I'm really proud of their work. And I talked about our crime analyst, Stacy. So one of the things that she does is when Warren got here, he wanted to have these monthly intelligence-led briefings. And it's kind of like the New York style of, everybody talks about, they are assigned certain things. And so the data-driven portion of that, so you get assigned something and you better have an answer on how it's going, in this meeting, or you're going to have a meeting afterwards with the chief, so everybody's got an assignment, and the whole goal is to fix what's not working. Sometimes that takes longer than we hope, but we're always working on things. And of course, with our crime prevention and education, so we still hold our Citizens Public Safety Academy. We just finished that a couple months ago, and we're in the school with the Student Public Safety Academy, and reaching out to those folks that don't always get to see us, and know what we do. And I talked a little bit about options down there already. Our community service officers and our code enforcement and cadets, again, they're in the downtown. Especially the CSOs, are assistive police, not only in the nuisance type offenses with our municipal code, but they also assist officers with crashes. Again, they're out there helping with getting roadways cleared. They're dealing with abandoned motorhomes, parking issues. It's almost weed season, and then by weed season I don't mean marijuana. It's almost our noxious weed season here coming up in May, where the grass starts growing and we get a lot of complaints on noxious weeds. So, and back in 2008, when I actually supervised these groups, we had a lot of the folks that were walking away from their houses due to mortgage issues. And it was quite a time trying to, get banks that were responsible for properties to try to take care of them. And we would do enforcement all the way up to cleaning up properties on our own, and then putting those charges back on the property. So when they're sold, the city gets repaid. So I know Valerie knows we're working up for her on Beacon right now. So that one's been quite a problem. Our dispatchers, really our first line. This is the folks that I supervise now, so I'm a little biased, but these folks are heroes that sit in a room and handle all kinds of stuff. So we have 19, we have one position froze, but we're having quite a issue with getting people, again, with that hiring process and the background process and the psychology, all that stuff. When people leave, it really creates a hole. And if you think about dispatching for all of those fire departments and for the city police, that's 24/7, every day, all day long. And so you have to have somebody there. And it's not just one person. You got usually 3 people sitting in there, trying to handle, and we're the primary answering point for the entire county. So if you call 911 and you live in Williams, you're going to get, the phone call is going to ring in our building. So it's quite an ordeal. We currently have about 10 dispatchers, and so there is a lot of overtime. We have several in background right now, and we're keeping our fingers crossed that we will be out of this crunch here within the next few months. But again, then we're back into the training phase, and it takes a long time. How am I doing on time? I gotta hurry in. So our records services, these are the folks that are really the face when you come into the department. They're the first ones you talk to on the phones, unless it's a 911 call. And they do a ton of police reports, warrant citations, and then they're the keeper of all of our records releasing per our Oregon revised statutes. So for police, last year we had 55,959 calls initiated and contacts. And you can see how many of those came in from the citizens, and then almost 20,000 were officer initiated. And then again, for Josephine County, we had 66,432 calls. So if you look at the police calls, I think that averages somewhere about 153 a day. So we're busy. Some of the highlights, and it's sad to say this because some of them are pretty tragic. We had 3 homicides in Grants Pass last year, 1 manslaughter, and 4 homicides in the county. So just because homicides happen in the county does not mean that we don't have a role in it. We're part of the major crimes team. The sheriff's office has 1 detective. And so the state police have to pick up all those major homicides or any homicide that happens in the county. And they are out of Central Point. So they rely heavily on Grants Pass police. And we are involved in every one of their homicide cases. And it's a lot. Each one of those is very time consuming. So the Blake versus Grants Pass lawsuit, some of you are aware of that. That is the legal decision based in the federal courts that kind of put a stop to how we were enforcing certain municipal codes. And so we're kind of under a decree right now, an injunction on some of those practices. And we don't know where that's going to go. It's been heard by the Ninth Circuit Court of Appeals. It may end up at the Supreme Court. We're not really sure where that goes, but it's very important that we're following everything that was set out by the magistrate from Medford. Again, we had the Narcan deployments and overdoses, and we just started and are one of the founding partner agencies in the Southern Oregon Child Exploitation Task Force. So we have 1 detective that is assigned to that, and they partner with all those other agencies in the Rogue Valley, going after those individuals that would prey upon our youngest and most vulnerable. And it's sad to say that they're real busy. So we had the police budget cuts, 2 police officers, dispatcher, and 1 record specialist. And we had a CSO that retired, so it didn't affect us as much, but we had COVID infections and FMLA. We found out that there was a correlation between our officers and spouses being quarantined at home, and then FMLA a little bit later for new kids. So we ran into quite a bit of that. Last summer, it was really difficult to staff a patrol team. One of the things that took away from us was the Flying Lark took some of our police officers that were towards the end of their careers, but thought that would be a really great way to continue on with a career. And so they left probably a little bit earlier than they may have, but that was just kind of another part of the perfect storm. We had 4 dispatchers resign. 2 of them went to another organization or a new career. Some went part-time with new families. So 7 retirements between 4 police officers, a CSO, and 2 dispatchers. So it was a really busy time for hiring, a busy time for overtime covering shifts, a lot of moving pieces. We're currently working on accreditation for both our police and dispatch center. And then you can see down there, we split with fire. And then we started a outfit or a wellness app called Cortico, and for our officers. We're doing a lot better job now getting our officers the help they need. We do a lot of really heavy stuff. This morning we had officers doing CPR on a 7-month-old baby that didn't make it. And so it just, we deal with a lot of heavy stuff. And if you don't take care of your people, you're going to lose your people. They will get out of the profession and just leave it. So that being said, sorry to bring the group down, but sometimes we have fun. We had a little snowstorm and some officers had a little fun out in front of the fire station. So it's important to remember that they're people too. They're fathers and mothers and everything else in our community, just like you and me. This is some of the community outreach that we do. We just recently did the polar plunge and it was horrible. We raised $9,000 for Special Olympics. And so we started that by raising money at the Capt, which is why you see the tank there. We do it, this is the second year we've done it. So it raises money. So not only you freeze the week before the polar plunge, and then you freeze the week of. So it's fun though. We have a good time. All right, that's all I got. I made it right at 1. So if you have any questions, I'd be happy to ask or answer.
Thank you, Todd. Any questions for Todd? One question I have, you talked about the mental health for officers. What about community mental health? Because that's really a topic for many communities. And what is Grants Pass doing in that area regarding public safety?
I think you cut out, Steve. So say that again.
The mental health you talked about for officers, but that's some areas on the different parts of the country are doing things with that regarding mental health coverage for the community itself, members of the community. And what are things that our officers are doing? And I know they are doing things, but what are some things they are doing to mental health in the community?
Yeah, so along with options, you know, what we're kind of pioneering now with that person that's going to be doing outreach, we also partner with them in other ways. So we have the mobile crisis team. We don't typically, you know, have contact with our citizens in a, you know, a safe, controlled area where we can, you know, sit down and talk to them about how their day is. It's usually when they're right in the middle of crisis. So we have folks that are able and willing to come out as part of the mobile crisis team. And they give us suggestions on how to effectively deal with folks that are in crisis. And sometimes we'll actually take over that portion and get them steered in the right direction into the options so they can get help that they need. So that is another thing. And then with our negotiations team, we also partner with them. They come out in those very, you know, the more severe situations where they partner with us in the command post, and they might give us some feedback about, hey, I think maybe you're dealing with this kind of an individual who's got some, you know, issues with this, and, you know, not necessarily diagnosing them, but giving them some ideas. And they have records on their folks where they may say, we know him and here's what you need to stay away from. Don't mention this, this, or this, you know. So we really partner a lot with options to get the community the best mental health that we're able to.
Okay, great. Thank you. Valerie, you have a question.
Well, I think it was just answered, but I just wanted to say something to me that's really important is to let you know how cutting edge our police department is. We were the first in the state to have body cameras. I mean, we have been working on doing the partnering with options. You know, I can't speak highly enough about what our police officers, we were the first to do school marshals, and, you know, and they're still there, and it's a really priority for the police department. So, you know, when Warren came in and started talking about the importance of getting out of the community and building trust, you know, I think that says a lot for who our police department has always been. So I just wanted to say, you know, I cannot tell you how much, you know, how good we should feel about the Grants Pass Police.
Thank you.
Thank you, Valerie. Doug, you have a question or comment?
Yeah, sort of the same thing with that Valerie said. I've been, the more I've gotten to know of what the police is doing with the homeless and that issue, the more amazed I've been with just how much they're doing and how long they've been doing it. They've been doing things for the community response team, and their efforts with homeless and with people that are struggling with mental health issues have been going on for an awfully long time, longer than what Medford's been doing. It's very impressive, and I think you all deserve a big pat on the back. And then second issue is, I believe the city council may be moving forward, this really isn't a question, but moving forward an idea of creating a tax district to pay for the fire department. Because I think the fire department budget, as I understand it, is continually growing exponentially, and they need to put some boundaries on that. And the idea of not constantly having to do the same thing every couple of years, which is go before the voters and ask for money. I think that's a smart idea. And I don't know if that's going to happen with the police department as well, but I like that idea. I think it's worth pursuing.
Yeah, I don't think there's anything currently on the ballot already. So I don't know, I don't think I get in trouble mentioning that. You know, I worked for the sheriff's office before I came here. And, you know, one of the things that brought me to the city was having, you know, a little bit more stabilized funding. So that's one of the things that we would like to be able to use as a recruiting tool. You know, sometimes people will see that we're on a levy and not really want to take a chance on whether or not they're going to be able to remain employed. So that is, you know, a big thing. And we, you know, annually we give back about $1 million to the general fund that we don't spend because we are good stewards of the money that is given to us.
Okay. Kelly, you have a question, comment?
I do, thanks. This is a real question out of curiosity. It might be common knowledge, but I don't know. I live on Northwest 4th Street in up Washington. There seems to be a warehouse or something there that has these huge military looking vehicles. Can you tell me about those?
So that's our fire department. Are you talking about up on Hillcrest?
Maybe. I
Yeah.
thought it was, I'm not sure. Maybe.
Okay, so if it's Hillcrest, that's our fire department. And so those huge military vehicles are what's called MRAPs. So they're mine resistant ambush protected vehicles. So prior to those vehicles, our SWAT team had to rely on retired Brinks trucks to take them to and from the scenes. And those trucks are not rated really for anything over than, you know, a handgun. And so if you can imagine, you know, being sitting in the back of one of those driving up to a house where you know that, you know, there's assault weapons. And at one point, the other captain, Jim Hamilton, talks about when they first started the team, they were going up this long driveway where a guy was rumored, he was an outlaw motorcycle guy, he was rumored to have a missile launcher. And so they're in this little, you know, this truck that is basically just a regular truck, and, you know, getting our folks to and from safely. So they look a little bit mean and intimidating, but that's kind of by design. But the best thing about them is that they were free because we were able to get them from the federal government on a 1033 program. And without that, that's probably about a $600,000 or $700,000 vehicle that we'd be looking at buying.
Sure, that makes sense. Can you tell me, just out of curiosity, about how often they're used per year?
They're probably maybe a dozen times a year. I mean, you'll see them rolling to training sometimes. We used one the other day. If you saw in the news, we put out a press release where there was a guy that had assaulted 2 people at the gas station. He had a gun on his hip, and then he had an AR-15 in his car. And we found him parked at the All Sports Park. And so we used that intimidating machine to pin his car up against the sidewalk so he couldn't leave. And then he apparently didn't think that his odds were very good, and he gave up really quick. So, you know, it's for intimidation. They're not meant to look nice.
Yeah, that gives me chills. Thanks for answering that question, Todd.
Bev, you have a question or comment?
Yeah, on the measure 110, the numbers went crazy as far as it sounds like drug overdoses and so forth. Before that, I guess you were able to arrest the people. Did the jails ever get filled up with those people, and how was it? Was it a lot better before the situation as far as, you know, I guess it was with deaths.
Yeah.
But what was the other?
Well, I think, and I'm not trying to be political.
No, I was just curious.
Staying totally out of the political realm, but I can tell you in the field, there is a very real consensus that we're seeing a lot more deaths, obviously, and a lot more lives that are ruined because before, if you were able to get somebody arrested for a Class C felony for possession of one of those hard drugs, they had the opportunity then to go to drug court. and they can get their charges reduced, or actually, I think they just completely wipe them clean. And there was a system in place to help those people get out of their addiction. But now, because it's just a violation, there's no incentive for them to get out of addiction. And, I've never been through that, but it's very painful for some of those individuals to, leave their drug and, get clean, because there's physical implications that go along with it. So the jails were really no more than they were used to. I mean, we dealt with it. It was okay. We had a big enough jail where we could, effectively, because they didn't stay in there. It was all pre-trial. So you would go in, and you would get a release date and a court date, and, you would then appear before, the judge if it were charged out. But I guess the biggest thing is that the system that was in place was, I wouldn't say it was perfect, but there was a system. And you wouldn't see the repeated folks as often as they are now, and certainly not the deaths that we're seeing now.
Thank you for what you do.
Thank you.
Okay, well, I don't see any more. Thank you, Todd, for an excellent presentation, bringing an update to us, and also to you and the rest of the police department for all that you do. I know it's not an easy job, but it's often thankless, but thank you very, very much for this.
You're welcome.
Okay. So as far as some birthdays, Charlie Seagrave's birthday is actually today. Brenda Chatfield, February 27th, and Lutz, February 28th. And some anniversaries coming up. Laurel Sampson, this is club anniversaries, 12 years with our Rotary Club. Nicole Sellinger, 2 years, and Jim Lefebvre, 3 years. So thank you for all your efforts to be Rotarians. James, would you like to become our Sergeant at Arms for a few minutes, please? Is James here for?
You got me? You hear me?
You're in. Yep, you're in.
Okay, sorry. The Rotary Action Group for Peace is run by Rotary International, and they certainly have a high priority these days to work towards world peace through education and mitigation and everything. But anyway, if anybody wants to join Rotary Action Group for Peace, just Google that for their email address, and you just give them your email, and they will provide you with periodic information about what Rotarians around the world are doing in their neighborhoods towards world peace. And they also have a monthly recap of international news that's very interesting. So it's a very worthwhile Rotaract club to join, and it's free. Just give me your email address. Anyway, I just wanted to mention that. And now it's time for Happy Bucks. If anybody has any, I'll look for hands that are raised up and see if we can raise a little bit more money for Road Gateway Rotary. So do I see Kelly Gonzalez with a hand?
Sorry, I forgot to take it down, but because of that, I'll give $10.
Okay, that'll work. However we can do it. Valerie, you still there?
I
see a
am.
hand.
Yes. Now can you hear me?
Yeah.
I think I'm unmuted. Okay. Yeah, I'm gonna put $10 for our police department. Like I said, I am so impressed with what we do. And every time I hear a siren and I understand that they're running toward it, I think to myself, thank God they're there, because yeah, that's not something that I ever choose to do. So $10 for our wonderful police department.
Absolutely.
But we'll
Thank
say
you.
one more thing. So when I applied for the Grants Pass Police Department in 1997, there was one position open and there were 300 applicants. So every time we have a position open, we're lucky to get 20 now. So there's a lot of folks that are not interested in doing this anymore. So that is probably one of the most concerning things going forward. So just thought I'd throw that in there.
Wow, absolutely. Hey, Doug Walker, you're there with a hand up.
Yeah, so I'd like to also give $10 to the, on behalf of the police department too, to say thanks for them. And then also $1, just kind of be silly. I didn't realize how bad my mouse on my computer was until it finally died the other day, and I bought a little cordless mouse. It is heaven to have a good mouse that works and you can click on things. I really appreciate this.
Absolutely.
Yes, the little
Yeah,
things.
good mouse.
Yeah, the little things. Good mouse.
Good mice are hard to find, indeed. Let's see, I'm looking down my list. I don't see any other hands. Does anybody else have one?
Kelly Moody. Kelly Moody has one.
Oh, Kelly Moody, right.
Hey, Todd, I was so impressed to hear that our police department is following a bit of what Eugene's does, which is hiring people to come and be advocates and ride along for dealing with housing issues, mental health issues, and so on, which are huge. These issues are becoming so prevalent in our communities.
Yeah, I sit on the Oregon at the academy. There's a lot of law enforcement leaders that are on this board. I'm on there as well as the homeless task force. And so agencies like Eugene Police Department and those bigger departments, they have a very well-funded effort. And so we're doing a lot of the same things that Medford, Eugene are doing on a shoestring budget by partnering with other agencies that will help us. So we've always been that way. We've always tried to do more with less. Sometimes it's good, sometimes it's really not so good, but we do.
I think Eugene started with Whitebird. They partnered with them, which I used to teach and live in Eugene, so I know that area. And I think they started the way it sounds like we're starting. But anyway, $20, everybody. I hope you feel the same as me, that it's so wonderful to have our good police department.
Absolutely. Thanks very much, Kelly. I don't see any more hands, but again, thanks to Todd for such comprehensive coverage about what's going on with the police department. That was amazing. But with that said, back to you, Steve.
Okay. Well, thank you very much. And Todd, I'll kick in another $20 for our police department as well. I mean, they've been great to work with at all levels. Very, very professional. And I know my wife also, as a teacher, it's such a needed part of unfortunately needed as part of our society. So thank you. So our thought for the week, I was Googling some ideas this morning, trying to find something that was somewhat appropriate for Ukraine and peace. And I put the statement from Rotary International, which of course was written prior to the invasion. But this one came across as a past president of Rotary International. It says, we need to convert our mind for peace, and it should be our passion to spread peace, as it is the peace which will make the world a better place to live. So with that, we will, we'll adjourn the meeting. And don't forget, we're going to have our, at 5:30 tonight, we're going to have our discussion book Tightrope, which will also be our monthly fellowship. The Zoom link is in the navigator, as well as I think there was a email that Dawn Welch sent out. So a discussion on that. So now we'll have our meeting after the meeting for fellowship.
Steve, I might mention very quickly that there's also an excellent video based on the book Tightrope that for people who are planning to come to the meeting tonight, if you have time to watch it before then, would be great.
Thank you.
Lutz, how do you access that?
Yeah, that was my question. How do you access?
Just go to Google search for Tightrope and open up that link. And then there's a link a little bit further down where it's PBS. So it's definitely accessible.
Okay. Thank you.
Yeah, it's great being able to see a lot of these people in more detail, that he talks about in the book, Clayton and some others. And so it's well worth watching.
his buddies. Yeah.
Yeah. It should be a really good discussion, I think.
Yeah.
And remember, those of you who read the book, a la Lutz, we need to pick out our favorite quote.
That's hard to do.
I know, I was thinking there were so many good ones, and why didn't I dog ear the book as I went along, but I didn't.
Tommy, you're whining like my students do.
Oh. Sorry, Luke.
Read that.
I'm listening to the book. I'm listening to Jennifer Garner read the book to me.
And how is that?
I
Deb?
like it. She sometimes changes her voice to be a sort of a like manly, or it just sort of sounds different, you know, coming out of her. But
Right.
it's fun to listen. Not fun because it's not a fun book.
No.
But it's nice to listen to her, and I can speed her up a little because I have a lot to get done with still.
Well, there definitely is a lot